Snow howled across the frozen Montana Valley as Ethan Cole, a homeless Army veteran with nothing but a tattered coat and his K-9 Ranger, stood before a rusted bunker door. He paid $1,000 for shelter, but what waited inside wasn't silence. It was a secret buried for 40 years, and it was still breathing. Ethan had once worn his uniform with pride, serving 2 tours overseas before coming home to a country that forgot him. Discharged with PTSD and drowning in medical debt, he'd lost his apartment, his job, even contact with his family. The world outside the wire had proven far more hostile than any battlefield he'd faced. For months, he drifted between overcrowded shelters, abandoned cabins with broken windows, and the back seats of kind strangers' trucks. Nights were the worst. Endless, freezing, haunted by memories he couldn't outrun. Winter was closing in fast, and hope was running thinner than the soles of his boots, until he stumbled on a listing online. Cold War bunker, $1,000 as is, no questions asked. It sounded like a scam, maybe even a cruel joke, but it was the only roof he could afford. With borrowed keys to a battered red pickup and Ranger at his side, the only creature who'd never judged him, never left him, he made the long drive into the remote Montana wilderness, chasing nothing more than a chance to stop shivering through the night. He didn't expect salvation. He just wanted 4 walls and a door that locked. The valley stretched empty and white beneath a steel-gray sky, wind carving shapes into the snow like ghosts dancing in the cold. The bunker jutted from the earth like a forgotten tomb, half swallowed by decades of drifts and neglect. A faded sign, bleached by sun and time, read "Authorized personnel only," though no one had enforced that rule since Reagan was president. Concrete cracked like old bones, and the entrance yawned open slightly, as if inviting or warning. Ethan tightened the straps of his worn backpack, heart pounding, not from fear, but from something rarer, possibility. This wasn't comfort. It wasn't safety, but it was a start. Just as he took his first step toward the entrance, Ranger stopped dead. The German shepherd's ears shot forward, his tail stiffened, and a low, guttural growl rolled from his chest, the same warning sound he'd made seconds before an IED ambush in Kandahar. Ethan froze. Ranger didn't spook. Not on patrols. Not in combat. Not ever. Then came the impossible. A warm gust of air, drifting from the pitch-black doorway, carrying a faint metallic tang, like old blood or ozone. In sub-zero cold, that shouldn't happen. Bunkers don't breathe. They don't heat. And they certainly don't leave fresh boot prints in the snow, leading straight inside. Flashlight trembling in his grip, Ethan stepped inside. The heavy concrete walls swallowed every sound, leaving only the crunch of ice under his boots and the rasp of his own breath. Dust hung in the stale air like ghosts suspended in time. Faded posters lined the corridor. Duck and cover, stay alert, protect the homeland. Relics of a world braced for nuclear annihilation. Rusted bunks, stacked ration tins, and Cold War survival kits sat untouched for decades, coated in a fine gray powder that hadn't been disturbed since the 1980s. Everything was perfectly preserved except for one thing. A single set of footprints cutting cleanly through the dust, leading deeper into the bunker. Ranger moved ahead, muscles coiled, nose sweeping the ground like a radar dish. He led Ethan past storage rooms filled with silent machinery and communication consoles frozen in analog time. At the end of the main corridor loomed a massive steel door, welded shut from the outside, thick seams crisscrossing its surface like scars. But the welds were cracked. Freshly, jagged fractures spiderweb from the center, as if something or someone had been pushing outward with relentless force. Ranger barked once, sharp and urgent, then turned to a section of wall that looked identical to the rest. He pawed at it, whining low in his throat. Ethan knelt, pressed his ear to the cold concrete, and felt it. A faint vibration, a hum, steady, rhythmic, alive, like machinery still running deep underground. His light caught a hairline seam, nearly invisible, running vertically down the wall. A hidden door. He scanned the room, remembering Cold War protocols always included manual overrides for emergencies. Ranger circled to an old metal shelf bolted to the wall, barking again, certain, insistent. Behind it, half buried in grime and cobwebs, was a small, rusted lever. Ethan hesitated only a second before pulling it. The bunker groaned like a waking beast. Gears ground. Metal shrieked. The wall split open down the center, slowly, releasing a wave of warm, stale air that smelled of sweat, antiseptic, and something unmistakably human. Inside, the chamber glowed faintly with dim emergency lighting that flickered like a dying heartbeat. Medical equipment lined the walls, 4 stands, monitors with dead screens, oxygen tanks. Crates stamped top secret and eyes only were stacked neatly beside vials labeled Experimental Series 7 and files bound in red tape. Condensation beaded on the ceiling and walls, as if someone had been breathing here, living here for years. And there, on a bolted-down metal cot beneath a threadbare blanket, lay a man. Frail, unshaven, skin stretched tight over bone, eyes closed as if in permanent sleep. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't alone. Ranger approached slowly, sniffing gently, then laid his head near the man's hand, offering silent comfort the way only a K9 can. On the bed frame hung a clipboard, its paper yellowed but legible. At the top, in smudged ink, Lieutenant Samuel Hart, MIA, Cold War Intelligence Division. Missing since November 1986. Classified status. Presumed dead. Ethan's pulse hammered against his ribs. Scattered across a small desk were files mentioning Operation Deep Vault, a black budget program buried so deep even most generals never heard of it. Government seals were violently blacked out with thick marker, as if someone had tried to erase not just the mission, but the man himself. This wasn't abandonment. It was erasure, a deliberate act of national amnesia. The man stirred, eyelids fluttering open like moth wings. His eyes, clouded but alert, locked onto Ethan's. His voice cracked like dry timber. Please, don't shut the door again. Ethan dropped to one knee, placing a gentle hand on the man's shoulder. You're safe now, he whispered, voice thick. Tears welled in the old soldier's sunken eyes. They left me here, he rasped. Said it was for the country. Said no one would ever find me. I stopped counting the winters. I thought I died years ago. Ethan's jaw tightened. No soldier, no American deserved this. Forgotten. Used. Locked away like a dirty secret. He wrapped his arms around Samuel's frail frame and lifted him gently, careful not to hurt him. Ranger stayed close, pressing against both men, guiding them like a silent guardian through the dark corridor and back toward the light. Sunlight hit Samuel Hart's face for the first time in 4 decades. He wept openly, shielding his eyes at first, then lowering his hands in awe, as if witnessing a miracle. I never thought I'd see the sky again, he whispered, voice trembling with wonder. Within hours, word spread. Local news picked up the story. Then national outlets. Federal agents arrived within a day, combing the bunker, seizing documents, launching a full investigation into Operation Deep Vault and the chain of command that authorized a man's disappearance. Samuel's identity was confirmed through dental records and a faded dog tag hidden in his boot. He was given medical care, a warm bed, and something even more precious, dignity. Ethan, the homeless veteran who bought a forgotten bunker for $1,000, was offered housing, a job with the VA, even a medal for extraordinary service. But he always shook his head with quiet humility. The real hero, he'd say, hand resting firmly on Ranger's head, is the one who never stopped listening when the world went quiet. Because without that dog's instinct, that loyalty, that unwavering courage, Samuel would have vanished forever. Another ghost in a system that discards its own. Ranger didn't need a medal. He'd already done what mattered. He'd refused to let a brother be forgotten. And in doing so, he gave 2 broken men a second chance. Not just at life, but at belonging. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? We're honored to have you here in the Rescue Tales family.